Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar towards gender parity and transformative gender equality policy, the role of parliamentary bodies. My name is Sasha Gavric. I'm ODIHR's advisor on gender issues, and I will be today moderating our session. It is really my great pleasure to host you today, and webinar organized together by the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, ODIHR, on the occasion of the International Women's Day 2025. This year is really an important year as we are marking the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. And with this today's event and many more events that will be taking place this year, we will be contributing to this process of marking, contributing to the overall discussions, hoping to contribute to the innovation, but also to the further progress that should be happening throughout the year, so that we can together continue with the path on advancing gender equality in our societies. Today's event is looking specifically into the crucial role that parliaments and their parliamentary bodies are playing in advancing gender equality, both in their internal structures, but also throughout the policy making. I am very pleased to be joined by two distinguished speakers that will be delivering opening remarks. And the first one is our dear Thea Yaliashvili, the first Deputy Director of ODIHR, who joins us not just in her function as first Deputy Director, but also as a true gender equality leader in our institution. Dear Thea, please take the floor. Thea, you are muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. And ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear participants, distinguished guests, and friends, it's a truly pleasure to welcome you all today to this webinar towards the gender parity and the transformative gender equality policy, the role of the parliamentary bodies, organized by us, by the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, and the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly as part of the 2025 International Women's Day celebrations. This year, as Sasha already rightly mentioned, we are commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, a landmark global framework that continues to guide our efforts towards achieving a gender equality. As we mark this significant milestone, it's clear that while much progress has been made, there is still much work to be done, and gender parity and the full realization of gender equality remain a critical goal that requires concerted, sustained effort at every level of the society and the governance. I truly believe, and we truly believe, that the parliamentary bodies play an essential role in this process. They are not only platforms for shaping the laws and policies, but also forums where gender equality must be actively championed. Parliamentary bodies dedicated to the gender equality, both formal and informally, provide the necessary structures to push for lasting change. These bodies work to ensure the gender perspective are integrated into all aspects of the work, from legislation to the policy implementation. And in today's webinar, we will try to explore the role of those bodies playing in fostering gender-sensitive parliaments and advancing gender equality policies. Moreover, we are fortunate to have with us distinguished experts and practitioners who will share their insights and lessons learned from across the OSCE region, their first-hand experiences and the findings, and also the findings from our latest publications, such as Parliamentary Bodies for Gender Equality Overview and Recommendations. I hope will provide us with the valuable guidance as we look to strengthen and enhance the work of such bodies in the years to come. I think one of the very important key messages of today's event is indeed the urgent need for renewed focus on gender equality, not only in the parliaments, but across all sectors of societies. And regretfully, we have been witnessing a lot of gender backsliding. As we move forward, it is vital that we support the existing parliamentary bodies while also exploring new and innovative ways for parliamentarians, both men and women, to work together toward this common goal. And the work that we are doing today is crucial in ensuring the gender equality does not remain just an ideal, but it becomes a lived reality for all of us. And I truly believe that we can create together that the parliaments that are more inclusive, more representative, and more capable of addressing the challenges that affect both women and girls in our societies. Really, thank you very much for joining us today. I look forward to our continuous discussions and impact recommendations that will emerge from this session. And most importantly, I'm extremely grateful to see that we have more than 100 attendees and participants of this event, which genuinely shows, the huge interest amongst our very important professionals to work together in order to achieve this important cause. Thank you, dear colleagues and distinguished guests, for the attention. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, dear Thea. Thank you a lot for providing the opening remarks in the name of OSCE ODIHR. This event, as said, would also would be not happening without our dear colleagues from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. Today with us, we have Gustavo Palares, the Deputy Secretary General of the International Secretariat of the OSCE. Dear Gustavo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Thank you very much, Thea. Apologies, Dr. Hedy Fry, our leading parliamentarian responsible for gender in the Assembly, apparently is having problems connecting. But I will just say a few words on behalf of the Assembly. Distinguished participants, as we approach International Women's Day, I'm delighted to welcome you to join the webinar co-organized by the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and our valued partner, the ODIHR. This event provides yet another vital opportunity for members of parliaments and policymakers to drive meaningful progress towards achieving gender parity in our parliamentary institutions. Over the past 3 decades, we have witnessed remarkable achievements in advancing gender equality across the OSCE region. Our latest joint publication on parliamentary bodies for gender equality, covering 48 participating states in the organization, highlights the crucial role these dedicated bodies play in promoting gender equality legislation and policy implementation. Yet, despite this progress, we continue to face persistent challenges that require our collective action and renewed commitment. This webinar comes at an important moment, offering us the opportunity to gain insights from our latest publication, which highlights the diversity of parliamentary bodies for gender equality and reveals both successes and gaps in how these bodies address gender issues. We have seen innovative approaches emerge, from formal standing committees to informal women's caucuses, is playing a vital role in mainstreaming gender perspectives within legislative work. However, we also observe varying levels of effectiveness and implementation across different countries. Gender equality is not just a principle, it is essential to build resilient democracies and fostering sustainable economic growth. As parliamentarians and representatives of international organizations, we hold a unique responsibility to turn commitments into tangible actions. Through our collective efforts, we can ensure that everyone, regardless of gender, has equal opportunities to contribute to and benefit from our democratic institutions. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation on behalf of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to our distinguished speakers who will share their expertise with us today. Your contribution will be invaluable in shaping our understanding of good practices and future directions in strengthening our parliamentary bodies for gender equality. Finally, I want to commend our growing cooperation with the ODIHR on a wide range of projects and initiatives in recent years. Our partnership has been instrumental in advancing our shared efforts in election observation, strengthening parliamentary integrity, promoting disability inclusion in national parliaments, combating violence against women, including in politics, upholding the rule of law, and addressing intolerance and discrimination. This vital work must continue as our collaboration remains essential to driving meaningful progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Gustavo. Thank you for highlighting the very diverse areas of cooperation between these two OSCE institutions, the Parliamentary Assembly and ODIHR. Dear participants, we are now moving immediately into the core element of our today's event, and that's the panel discussion with our distinguished guests. We have really been lucky to secure 4 very interesting, very diverse speakers that I will shortly introduce. So the first speaker that is today with us is Honorable Kenneth Forslund, a long-term politician from Sweden, who at the moment also acts as the Deputy Speaker of the Riksdag, the Swedish Parliament. As we will hear later as well, Mr. Forslund also is part of the Swedish Parliament's working group on gender equality that he is also chairing. Mr. Forslund, a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. The next one on my list is a person from my close region of origin, Honorable Maria Lugaric, who is a long-term politician from Croatia. She represents the Croatian Sabor, the National Parliament of Croatia, where she is chairing the Gender Equality Committee. She has been occupying diverse roles in politics in Croatia, including some specialization in the area of education policy. Dear Maria, a warm welcome also to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Maria. The next one is Petra Arens, a long-term friend of ODIHR. Petra Arens is a person that some of you maybe have heard based on her academic research. Petra is currently formally an Academy of Finland Research Fellow at the Tampere University in Finland. She has contributed significantly to the academic literature, but also to our practitioners' world, as I would call it, by acting as a co-author of the international idea Inter Pares Handbook, that is called Beyond Numbers, Stories on Gender Equality in and Through Parliaments. We are very pleased to have you, dear Petra. A warm welcome also to you.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you, Petra. And last but not least, also a friend of ODIHR, Tamara Pesic. Tamara is an advisor in the administration of the parliament, the Skupština of Montenegro. She is working closely with the Gender Equality Committee in the Montenegrin parliament and has been over the last years one of the key people in the background of the parliament that is supporting crucial lawmaking and oversight activities. Dear Tamara, also a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Sasha. It's really a great pleasure to be today and to participate at this event together with you, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you as well, Tamara. Dear participants, as you can see, we have put forward a diverse panel. We have one deputy speaker who chairs an internal parliamentary group on gender equality within the parliament. We have a chair of a gender equality committee. We have an academic that combines academia and practice. And we have with Tamara also one of those people that are not elected, but are the parliamentary staff and that are very often doing a big portion of the work in the background. So we hope that we will be able to learn from their stories. We will The first person from which experience we will be learning is Honorable Mr. Forslund. Dear Deputy Speaker Forslund, as you are chairing the working group on gender equality in the Swedish Parliament, we wanted to first hear from you if you could tell us a little bit what the specific role of this working group is.
Well, the working group is elected by the Riksdag board, and that is very important because that highlights the fact that this is something that is prioritized on the top level of the parliament. And then over the time, it has been either the speaker or the first deputy speaker that has been heading the group. So actually, this group was initialized almost 20 years ago, and then it was the speaker then, Dr. Björn von Sydow, who was the previous Minister of Defense and a lot of other positions. So he was a very influential politician and perhaps not the obvious choice to have for heading a gender equality group. But he really put the group into work, engaged both parliamentarians and researchers at the university in Uppsala, and really kicked the group off and pointed out the importance of it. So we're actually living a little bit on those foundations still. We are formed in the way that each of the 8 parties get to nominate 2 persons, MPs for the group, 1 male, 1 female. And then we actually have a lottery to assign which one is going to represent the respective parties. And the end result is a quite equally distributed group. So it's about half of the group are female, about half of the group are male representatives then. And then I'm sharing it, and the deputy chair of the group is the second deputy speaker, Miss Julia Kronlid from the Sweden Democrats. So in practice, this election period at least, the 2 major parties have 2 seats in the group, and all the other 6 parties have 1 seat in the group. The discussions is not very much influenced of which parties we come from. It's very much based upon the inquiries that we make each election period to all the members of the parliament. We got the possibility this time. We even halted the distribution of the inquiry to the members of the parliament to give the group time to come up with some questions that we wanted to put into the inquiry. That gave us a lot of very interesting answers back, and also comments in the open sections of the inquiry, where you could make any comment, not just answering the questions. That combined with all the research result that we have previously from the academic researchers, and we are still cooperating with them, so it's an ongoing project at the moment. All this knowledge that we get combined, that is the basis for our discussions in our group. And then we come up with different suggestions and try to find solutions. We also scrutinize what has already been done, if that is really working. So we have, for instance, taken a closer look at the childcare facility that we have in the parliament, and that we have had for a long period of time, due to the fact that there were some, well, you could say rumors that MPs found it hard to get in there with their children, to have the possibility to get a time slot, so to say, to have their children there. So we have been visiting them, we have been asking them, we have been checking out how is the scheduling really working, and what are the possibilities for the MPs to have their children here. And we have pretty much come to the conclusion that it's perhaps more rumors than reality, that it's hard to get your kids in there. Mm-hmm. And perhaps also that we have identified that perhaps they could improve the information a little bit about how the working circumstances are for the childcare facility, and if they give out a little bit more information about the practicalities, probably that will clear some of the question marks that some of the MPs might have, and might be the foundation for these rumours that it's sometimes hard to get your kids in there. Another thing that was created some years ago, quite many years, actually even before this working group was established, is that we have fixed voting times. That was a big change, and it was very much disputed in the beginning. Today, it's no one that would want to go back to have these late night votings, which you didn't know really when they were about to happen, and so on. We made an adjustment a couple of years ago, so the Thursday voting, that both votes on Wednesday and Thursday used to be at 4 p.m. A couple of years ago, we adjusted the fixed time for the Thursday votings to 3:20 p.m. instead. It's only 40 minutes. It doesn't seem to be a very big difference or big change, but actually to some of the MPs, Sweden is partly a very distant country. And for some of the MPs that come from very distant areas, those 40 minutes is the difference between getting home the same day or getting home the next day at the end of the week. So it makes a big difference to many, actually.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Forslund, for this also practical examples on your work through our practical work, our research, academic research as well. It is very well documented that the Swedish Riksdag is being considered one of the most gender-sensitive parliaments in the world. And if you can maybe shortly, in few sentences, say what would you advise? What type of advice would you give to other parliaments in order that they, in a way, go a similar path towards gender sensitivity of a parliament?
Well, I think that in some cases it's small changes that you need to make that makes a big difference. I mean, the 40 minutes, for instance, that's quite a small change. The change from having these unknown voting times to have the fixed voting times, that caused a lot of debate in the beginning, and many of the more senior MPs back then thought that this was totally ridiculous and sloppy even to have it like that. It works very well, and it hasn't given any major practical problems to have it like that. In some cases, we have votings that have to really happen a specific day because there is a legislation that is going to be introduced at a specific date, and there is a process between our decision in the parliament and the start of the legislation. Then you have to make some planning to make that happen, and perhaps have some margins also if the debate might go on a little bit longer, so you don't have the possibility to have a vote on it on a specific date. It might happen a week later or a day later. You have to have those margins. Then you solve things. So don't make it dramatic. Childcare, I think, is extremely important. Those possibilities. And it's very much appreciated both by the male and the female MPs. Today we have a situation in Sweden where the outtake of parental leave is more and more equal. Mm-hmm. The higher educational level you have, the more equal your outtake out of the parental leave that you're obliged to in the Swedish system. Mm-hmm. And that goes for the MPs. And you see that young MPs, nevertheless, whether they are female or male, they use about half the time, they share it with their partner. And for them, it's extremely important that we have a lot of these systems and methods for making it possible for young MPs to combine their assignment with having a family life. And that goes for both sexes. And actually, I feel sometimes that the male MPs are more active and more eager to actually have these systems working than the female. And that's a little bit ironic, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, thank you a lot for your sharing your experience and the observations. I will definitely take with me the comment on small changes are needed, and that one we should recognize those changes. Thank you a lot. We will move now to the next speaker. Marija Lugarić is, as I said, a long-term politician and has been a member of the Croatian Parliament for multiple convocations. In this convocation, Marija, you are chairing the Gender Equality Committee. Would you maybe share one concrete example how you have integrated gender equality into legislative work and how the formal body as the Gender Equality Committee is contributing to advancing gender equality policy in Croatia?
Thank you. Hello from Croatia. So since 2001, just following the when we put in the constitution gender equality as a core value of the Croatian constitution, the Gender Equality Committee has the rights and the duties of the competent working body in matters of pertaining to promoting and monitoring the application of the principles of gender equality in the legislation of the Republic of Croatia. The main activities of my committee are regular sessions for discussions of the legal proposals, thematic sessions, international activities, and other activities, which include, but they're not limited to, cooperation with ombudswomen for the gender equality, the Office for Gender Equality of the government, commissions for the gender equality at the local level, and NGOs. I would stress out the cooperation with NGOs as it is a very important activity for our committee. Depending on the topic, representatives of various NGOs are invited to each thematic sessions, and a large number of representatives actively participates in thematic sessions. Myself, as a committee chair, or some other representative, participates in roundtables, workshops, and conferences organized by various NGOs. They also send remarks and proposals to legislative acts in the parliamentary procedures, which they can present at regular sessions of the committee. The committee, since its establishment in 2001, the Committee for Gender Equality has organized almost 100 thematic sessions, roundtables, and conferences, often in cooperation with civil society organizations. Just to give you an example, last week we had a presentation of the research which the main union has done about the sexual harassment of the workplace. That was just one example we did last week. The committee also plays a central role in advancing gender equality policy, ensuring that the gender considerations are incorporated into the legislative process. We'd like to say in each and every bill we are debating in the parliament, and promoting reforms aimed at achieving gender equality in the society. Maybe one concrete example of how the Croatian parliament has integrated gender equality into its legislative work is through the adoption of the Gender Equality Act back in 2003, which was a significant step toward ensuring legal protection against gender discrimination in Croatia. The Gender Equality Committee play an important role in advancing this act through the parliamentary debate and consultation with NGOs. Or more recently, we, as a committee, has been involved in advocating for the ratification and implementation of Istanbul Convention, which was really a vivid debate, to be very mild, which aims to prevent and combat violence against women and domestic violence. Therefore, the committee organized several discussions and public debates around the importance of the Istanbul Convention, which led to increase in awareness of this problem in society, and finally, Croatia's formal ratification of the treaty in 2018.
Thank you, Marija, for all these fantastic examples. I will definitely take with me another highlighting on how gender equality committees can be the door to a parliament. Very often, women's movements and overall civil society organizations working on gender equality might not be sure, whom to approach, how to approach. A gender equality committee is definitely a wonderful mechanism to ensure an entry point for civil society organizations. And as you will see later, not many parliaments have a gender equality committee standalone. So if one such parliament would approach you, Maria, for advice on setting up a gender equality committee, what advice would you give?
If I were advising a parliament on setting up the gender equality committee, firstly, I would advise to establish a well-defined mandate for a committee that outlines its role in promoting gender equality, reviewing relevant and all other legislation, monitoring government actions, and advocating for the new policies. It's important to ensure that the committee has the authority to propose and amend legislation, so it should not be just an advisory body, but also an active participants in the legislative process, with the power to influence and shape gender-related laws. I would also advise to strive for gender balance within the committee itself. This is something we didn't succeed in this convocation, I must admit. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, in addition to parliamentarians, the committee also has a few additional members appointed to the committee from among gender equality experts, activists, and representatives from the civil society organization. For example, we have 13 members of the committee, 13 MPs, but we have mm-hmm. 3, which we call external members, which are experts for the equality. They have the rights and the duties as we as MPs have. They can debate, they can propose, but they cannot vote because they're not elected, but they're really important to our committee. So those are the members appointed to the committee from among gender equality experts, activists, and representatives from the civil society organization to contribute their knowledge and experience, which will ensure that the committee's work is informed by those who have hands-on experience in the field. The committee should work to incorporate the gender perspective into all areas of policy, not just those that are explicitly related to gender. This includes analyzing the impact of legislation on different genders and ensuring policies are equitable and inclusive. And in the end, the committee should maintain regular communication with women's rights organizations, gender-focused NGOs, academic institutions, and international bodies working on gender equality issues. Finally, I would advise to encourage public hearings, consultations, and debates of gender equality issues to give citizens a voice in the process. This builds accountability and helps the committee stays in touch with the needs and concerns of the general population. For all mentioned, it's crucial that the establishment of the Gender Equality Committee is supported by the parliamentary leadership and the executive branch. So I would advise to foster a collaborative environment within the committee, encouraging cross-party cooperation, and that would definitely lead to success by my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. This is an incredible list. I think we need to go back to you and to ask you even for the write-out for some potential further work with some parliaments. Thank you a lot for highlighting very interesting examples. I will take, for example, this note on the external members, also maybe not a regular type of action that other parliaments are taking. So thank you a lot for sharing your experience. We will move on now to Petra Arens. Petra, you have this privilege to look into parliaments, maybe sometimes from a perspective of above, so to say, the parliament, flying over it and looking down a little bit, being able to analyze. So, in your view, what are some of the challenges that parliaments face in institutionalizing gender-sensitive practices, and how can parliamentary bodies maybe help to overcome barriers?
Yes, thank you, Sasha. I'll start by discussing one of the main challenges, formal commitments. I think this shines through already, like in the presentations we had so far. So formal commitments to institutionalize actually a strategy, or like to committing to becoming more gender sensitive. And while these formal commitments are really key to making parliaments more gender sensitive, many parliaments still avoid this step. So here, parliamentary leadership, particularly cross-party leadership, as just mentioned also by Kenneth and Maria, can help identify a strategy, such as conducting an external audit, maybe with the help of OSCE, or utilizing internal actors, such as existing gender-focused parliamentary bodies. These bodies then can create strategies or even launch specific activities to promote gender equality if an overarching formal commitment is out of reach. The Inter-Pares study I conducted with Sylvia as well found that the majority of our surveyed parliaments did not have any formal commitment. Yet several of the parliaments experienced stories of change through various parliamentary efforts that help make them more gender sensitive. So in the absence of formal commitments, informal processes can serve as alternatives. So in several parliaments, bottom-up mobilization by single MPs or groups or staff also, I think we're going to hear more from Tamara soon, have led to strategies focused on gender equality, diversity and inclusion. And these efforts have ranged from achieving parity in committee leadership, organizing childcare for MPs, organizing mentoring programs for young women to pull them into politics, or also organize gender-themed exhibitions or exhibitions with women artists. So none of this required a formal strategy. And considering it's a long journey, it's just better to get started somehow instead of waiting for a formal commitment. The second major challenge I see is, of course, the common misconception that policies are gender neutral. So parliaments need to commit to educate MPs and staff on gender and intersectional inequalities, fostering gender expertise across all policy fields. Gender parliamentary bodies can act as networks of expertise, inform other MPs, and advance then gender mainstreaming strategies. So they really can help in translating gender aspects to the broader policy fields. And here, the Women's Rights and Gender Equality in the European Parliament, which has started more than 20 years ago to formally adopt a gender mainstreaming strategy, it was really since then quite successful, and in continuously extending the scope as regards content and parliamentary actors involved. So I think particularly this long-term strategy of making gender mainstreaming a task of everyone is, in my opinion, particularly valuable to making parliaments more gender sensitive and to involve the wealth of parliamentary bodies, not just the gender-focused parliamentary bodies. Third big challenge is, of course, also the need to involve the parliamentary administration. But the big challenge is here more the need for resources. So it's not that this will just fall from heaven, but you really need to put effort into it. You need political will. And also you need, for example, time. And time is really scarce in parliaments, as you all know. So to really making an effort and making sure that this is recognized as important is crucial. And here, gender-focused parliamentary bodies are essential to monitor progress or to keep the process moving forward. They can be a crucial body that can suggest next steps, alternative steps to figure out, okay, where are we now, where we need to go next, and what's the standard at the moment. And finally, there are plenty of other challenges, but I'll stick with these now. Of course, many parliaments face opposition towards gender equality, be it because, as Kenneth says, something like, oh, we have always done it like that. Why do we need to change? Just, for the sake of just continuing as always, why do we need to change? Because I feel comfortable to overcome and explain why this change is necessary. But of course, also the opposition may come from parties promoting traditional gender relations or even opposing gender equality, often accompanied by inappropriate and harmful behavior, including sexism, homophobia, racism. So in this case, I think cross-party mobilization and any specialized body who's working cross-party is crucial to keep gender equality in a broader sense also on the agenda and ensure that parliaments remain gender sensitive. So institutionalizing gender-sensitive practices is challenging, but with political will and with the parliamentary bodies who can and should play a pivotal role, I think it's possible. And it's just important as, I will quote directly Canada again, small changes make big differences. So I think this is the way forward. And it's really core to connect and to have different parliamentary bodies on board to move forward on this agenda.
Thank you, dear Petra. From your passion talking about this topic, you can see also that you have been investing a lot of time, looking into parliaments, analyzing their structures, their rules, their mechanisms, their practices. So I would have a similar question for Maria. If you would have to advise the parliament on setting up a parliamentary body, would it be a formal or informal one, and why? You muted?
Yeah. Sorry. I muted myself. I'm sorry. So in general, as already emphasized, specialized bodies can perform a wide range of activities in pursuit of a gender-sensitive parliament. They can unite women, also men, across political boundaries. They can advocate for gender-sensitive changes to parliament. They can put gender issues on the political agenda, work on laws and things like that. And also what has been emphasized already, engage with civil society organizations to make their voices heard, to include marginalized voices and citizens in making the work more relatable for the people. But so the answer to the question of formal or informal is, of course, it depends. Almost any parliamentary body, I think, is helpful if certain aspects are secured. We already heard different examples, and I'm sure Tamara will also further illuminate the varieties of these kind of specific bodies. So context matters. Both formal and informal bodies have the advantages and disadvantages. Formal ones, such as committees, signal that they are equal to other parliamentary bodies and can take over crucial work for gender equality, be it on legislation and so on. But these can also sometimes follow the logic of government, have government and opposition in them, so they can't find a consensus if this is not the mode of operation in a certain parliament. So this then might result in deadlock and not moving forward. Likewise, the committees can do the policy work, but they shouldn't be in charge of the transformative change of the organizational structure of the parliament. So that's a task for the parliamentary leadership or a specific body created to work on the organizational aspects. And formal parliamentary bodies usually have more formal powers and access to resources, and can address this either as a broader portfolio as a specific body, or also mainstream gender across committees. This doesn't really make such a difference. The question is more, is it isolated or not? And when it comes to informal bodies, they can also have an advantage in the sense that they can operate cross-party and develop a common ground that then can be suggested to the other parliamentary bodies, and can then really initiate and maintain change through a broad consensus among across the parties. So this, of course, also nevertheless comes with the risk that they might not be accepted or even be isolated without engagement with other parliamentary bodies. So in conclusion, specialized bodies, whether informal or formal, should not be seen as the sole solution, but really as a part of a broader package of a need to move forward and to have someone in charge who is constantly looking at it. So they need the power, they need status, and they need resources to function effectively, to make sure that gender issues are not an isolated issue in a parliament, but are really networked across. Yes.
Thank you. I was expecting that there will not be an easy answer, an easy proposal if it's going to be a formal or informal body. So thank you a lot for your in-depth thoughts and highlighting, so to say, the benefits and in a way also the challenges of both structures. We are moving ahead with Tamara. Tamara, from my experience also working with parliaments, people like you, parliamentary staff, are the backbone of the parliament. MPs have, of course, very important roles and powers to play, but they occupy very diverse positions. Some of them become ministers, others, will maybe be re-elected, while very often parliamentary staff will sometimes even stay multiple decades in the parliament, and you're able to advise and influence, so to say, the agenda of the committees. You have been working directly with the Gender Equality Committee, and I was hoping that you could maybe share some examples of successful initiatives that have come from the work of the Gender Equality Committee in Montenegro, and how that has maybe shaped national gender equality policy.
Thank you, Sasha, very much. I would first start with saying that really what you mentioned now, having a strong institutional background, having well-established high-quality secretariats that carry this institutional knowledge, as we had here in Montenegro, having people working over decades in this area, can be very important in creating an agenda, gender equality agenda, specifically when it comes to parliaments, where we have members of the parliament changing every couple of years due to elections, and where we have situations that maybe we sometimes have MPs who are not that familiar with the topic. So having strong secretariats who are well educated and prepared for preparing high quality materials sometimes can and usually can have and play a very important role in the quality of the work of the committee. I would just mention one and start with one very good example. Petra was in her second question talking about the importance of formal and informal bodies, whether they're formal or informal, but existing. We actually had a situation where we had a formal and informal body within the parliament, which showed that if they complement each other in work and worked as synchronized, and that they can really make good results. So in the Parliament of Montenegro, we have a Committee for Gender Equality, which has its own mandate, which is defined by the rules of procedure. But we also have a women's club. Now, the Parliament of Montenegro is mandatory for and mother committee for only one law on gender equality, which gives us the possibility for broad action and reaction within the Parliament of Montenegro, but also ties our hands when it comes to amendments on certain acts. So we can work as an advisory body. We can give some sort of suggestions to other committees which are in charge for those laws, but we cannot have stronger reaction. This is where this synchronization happened with another body, which at that moment was informal. Now is formalized. That was Women's Club, which was basically a new informal organization of all women MPs in the Montenegrin parliament, where they showed that they worked actively regardless of their party representation, putting gender agenda at the top of all party differences that they had. So when we had situation that some discussions in the Committee for Gender Equality showed that some amendments and some changes to some draft laws that are in procedures need to be made, they would transfer it to the Women Club and their work together, prepare amendments together, and then they made significant changes, some significant initiatives. We had specifically one law on in vitro fertilization, which was very disputable and had a lot of things that needed to be changed. And together they worked within the Women's Club and they changed everything that needed to be changed. So this is just one of the examples. We also mentioned the channels that the committees and the bodies within the parliament can be channels for communication and for the NGO sector and other groups and organizations to be heard. And we have a very good example in our Committee for Gender Equality. We have Women's Parliament. We just a couple of days ago had the 17th session of a Women's Parliament that was organized. We organize it every time around the 8th of March to mark it by starting some very important and significant topics. And this year we chose a very important topic for us in the past period, because we really believe that we need to talk more about it, because we had it as a very important problem, which was femicide. We now have the draft amendment that is, I think, currently at the public hearing about changing the laws so we can introduce femicide into our legal system, because we had a lot of cases of femicide in Montenegro in the past, and the practice showed that there are significant problems in implementing existing legislative framework that we have, because the people are being the people who commit femicide are being given much lesser sentences that they should. So we chose this topic, and we use Women Parliament as some sort of platform where we open for all public the discussion about the major issues that we believe that are important. And what is important, it is a channel for women from political parties that are maybe not in the parliament or are not parliamentary parties, and NGOs for their voice in the plenary session to be heard, for them to ask ministers and the president of the government what are they doing in certain areas. I would mention also another very, so to say, positive practice that we have, and this is the adoption and implementation of the action plan for gender mainstreaming in the parliament. We're now actually approaching to the end of the last one that we had, and we're going to start with the help of the OSCE to work on another plan. This is very important because it literally in several areas defines activities that we recognize within our own house, within the Parliament of Montenegro, that need to be addressed in order to strengthen the capacities not just of the Secretariat to deal with gender equality, but of members of the Parliament, so they can understand better the gender equality, they can understand better the gender perspective of all the policies that they're dealing, not just in the Committee for Gender Equality, but in all other committees and in all other issues that might appear as a discussion on a plenary session or working bodies. And we are really very much as a Secretariat looking forward to development of the new one. We will first see what was the score that we did with the last one, what were positive practices, what were negative practices. We're actually expecting experts now to provide us with a thorough analysis and to sit down and decide and see how we can move forward, because we are it's a fight, and it's an ongoing process, so to say. But we want this act to be perceived as the act of the overall Parliament, of all MPs, of all secretariats, so we can together work in improving the work of the Parliament in the field of gender equality.
Thank you, Tamara, for listing all these fantastic examples. I had the privilege to attend one of your women parliament sessions. It's impressive to see how these sessions bring together almost all ministers, like half of the parliament, half of the civil society that's in the country, international community partners, and how it is a fantastic platform to put certain issues on the political agenda of the entire country, not just of the Gender Equality Committee. And we're also very proud of you, as you have been the first parliament in Southeast Europe that has done a gender audit and continues on it, the sensitivity part. So congratulations to that. You have now 1 minute from me for the last questions, because we need to close the session. The last question is about how to engage male politicians on gender equality issues, and what is your experience in Montenegro?
Well, I will start, actually finish with one phrase that we started the discussion, and that is that in this case also small changes can make a big difference. So we basically work a lot with MPs, male MPs also, in educating them on the importance of understanding how important it is basically for them to talk about gender issues, not just in working bodies, but in the plenary sessions. And we can say that we can see a progress. So, for example, in the past period, we had a situation where the topic of, for example, on menstrual poverty, which was never initiated in Montenegrin parliament, was basically initiated by a male MP. who suggested an amendment to assist women in the period of COVID crisis that we had. So we can see changes. They are small steps that we need to address. We can changes also in the rules of procedure, regulations that define the percentage of men and women, male and female MPs in the working bodies. We have now, for the first time in the Committee for Gender Equality, parity. So we have almost the same number of male and female MPs, which is important because those male MPs are now understanding better the issues we are dealing with, and they're very much active in the discussions when it comes to working sessions, and that in a way transfers to the plenary hall, which are being broadcasted all over the country. And we do believe that when men speak about gender issues, then we have a stronger voice, because without both men and women, men MPs and women MPs talking about this, we cannot have a significant change and a sustainable change. So we are going to continue with these practices, with the educations, with the workshops, and so on, because we really do believe that, and also development of materials and producing materials that can help MPs to have better knowledge about the issues and get more interested about the issues. I don't know if we, so we do believe that slowly, by raising awareness and changing some things within the rules of procedure, within the law on Parliament that we're expecting that we will have in some time soon, we can make significant changes and provide that also men are more as MPs included when it comes to talking about gender issues.
Thank you, Tamara. We can hear and feel your passion working on this topic. We are pleased to have you. Dear colleagues, we will be now looking shortly into few slides. I promise it will be very short, into the latest research that we have done when it comes to parliamentary bodies for gender equality. It is our latest publication that has been published together with the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. I have shared the link already in the chat. It is a very important publication for us, as we have sent out a comprehensive survey to 56 national parliaments, and data has been collected over a period of 1.5 years, finishing data collection last year in spring in 2024. And immediately, I have to say a big thank you to Elodie Phillips, my research mate and the main author of this publication, who has done all the incredible work and collecting all this fantastic data. Our tool 3, as we call it, is part of a bigger series of publications on gender-responsive governance, where our goal is really to publish individual publications that will hopefully make a difference in practical work in advancing institutional and policy solutions related to gender equality and gender-responsive governance in our society. This publication also complements our ongoing work within the OSCE and ongoing publications or existing publications that have been released on our webpage. In shortly, we were really privileged to get data from 48 states and to analyze this data. We have looked into 4 in-depth case studies, Andorra, Belgium, Montenegro, and Kyrgyzstan within that publication. So very diverse case studies, culturally, geographically, but also from the size, aiming really at understanding the diversity that different countries have when it comes to their formal and informal bodies. We were also lucky to, within that survey, to collect data from 45 national parliaments that have formal bodies and from 23 that have informal bodies for gender equality. You have heard a lot from our dear speakers, from Tamara, from Petra, from Maria, and Mr. Kenneth on the parliamentary bodies. We what we have decided when we started this research is to first, of course, to make some form of systematization. We went back to academic literature, to people like Petra and her colleagues, looking into the existing literature that was around the topic of women's parliamentary spaces, gender mainstreaming mechanisms, gender-focused parliamentary bodies, and we have come up basically with two major groups of parliamentary bodies. This is why we are using this terminology, formal and informal. For us, the first group that we have identified are the formal bodies that are established usually to a formal document like the rules of procedure or a law on the parliament, that have a very direct and explicit role to play in lawmaking and oversight, that have very standardized membership procedures, as you could hear also from the practical examples, and that in a way are institutionalized into the legislative functions. Among those formal bodies, what we have seen in the OSCE space is that the majority of the formal bodies are standing committees or subcommittees, like the Gender Equality Committee in Croatia, and very few formal bodies are of different nature, like the parliamentary councils that exist in some countries, or advisory committees, ad hoc committees, or maybe women caucuses with a formal mandate that exist in other countries in the OSCE space. But mainly, when we talk about formal bodies, it is about the standing committees. The majority of those committees are so-called multi-portfolio bodies. So they do not cover only gender equality as per our research, but a lot of other issues like family, children, youth, human rights, social affairs, or equal opportunities of other groups, societal groups. While 19 of those dedicated bodies are solely dedicated to gender equality. And again, the examples from Montenegro and Croatia are showing us. When we come to the second group, these are bodies that we have called informal bodies. Usually, informal bodies that have a more light role, in the sense that they might not be playing a clear position in lawmaking or oversight. They might be more focused on solving internal issues, working on mentoring, capacity building, networking, information sharing, and might not be having a formal role in the lawmaking process. Those again are basically grouped into two major groups. On one side, it's women caucuses that exist in so far in 17 parliaments in the OSCE space, and the other group are so-called cross-party gender-focused bodies. In that group, we have a lot of very different formats. In total, we identified 36, and including, for example, the Swedish Working Group on Gender Equality, or the Finnish Council on Gender Equality that exists, but also all the cross-party parliamentary groups that are in the UK and the US Parliament. The publication basically lists, all of them, and in a way highlights really the benefits that we see when setting up and maintaining and strengthening such bodies. The benefits related to really strengthening gender sensitivity in the parliament, especially when it comes to ensuring really the gender mainstreaming is being applied in lawmaking, but also when it comes to providing institutionalized platforms to engage, to identify common priorities, as Petra was also mentioning, and to put those priorities forward on the agenda. And lastly, as we could nicely hear also from Maria's examples, but I guess also it's the case in the other parliaments, those are at an entry point for civil society participation in the work of parliament. The publication at the end puts forward also 8 recommendations that can be considered by the parliament. I will not go into details as we are a bit over time, but I hope those will be of use for the readers of this publication. This is a QR code on how you can access the publication, and as said in the chat function, I've also put the link. We from ODIHR would be pleased if you would have a look into this publication, and if you would invite the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and ODIHR for further cooperation. And with this presentation, dear colleagues, we're also coming now to an end of this webinar. I will only use the time really to say a big thank you to our dear speakers for sharing these fantastic stories of success, of positive journeys, but also of challenges. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, of course, also to Dietea, who stayed with us throughout the event. We from ODIHR stay at your disposal. Petra mentioned one of our main service lines, the gender audits, but we also stay overall at the disposal of the national parliament of the OSCE space to work with you on advancing gender equality in politics, and also gender equality, of course, more broadly in society. Thank you all, and wishing you a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you. And also, Sasha, thanks to you.
Thank you. Yes.
Have a wonderful day, colleagues. Bye.